Hi folks, it's Coach Kelvin here from the WeRun Virtual Run Club and WeRun Coach for Leeds and surrounding areas, as well as online coaching. In this little video, I'm going to share some thoughts on event choice and particularly for ultramarathons. And I think the reason event choice for ultramarathons is so important, if the event that we choose doesn't really fit in with how we need to train for that event, it might be that we stand on the start line and we don't actually make it round. So we might get maybe sort of timed out at an aid station or something like that. Whereas if training doesn't go too well for maybe a 5 or a 10k, we might not get the time that we want, but we're probably still going to complete the event. So if I've got runners that are choosing ultras, I like to kind of encourage them to take a look and see how training in the sort of peak block looks and how it fits in with what's going on in their lives, and is it something that they think they're capable of doing. Because what's quite interesting is we're not actually looking at the event itself really to a certain degree. We are and we aren't. But I'm not looking at 50k and going, can I do 50k? I'm looking at what the peak training looks like in the 8 to 12 weeks that lead up to the taper, and can I complete that training? And what I like to do is kind of work backwards for an event. So if I think of something in, let's say, September, and I say, that looks like a great race, it fits on a day that I've got free, maybe a weekend that I've got free, I then start to work backwards, and that's what I encourage my runners to do. So we think, okay, so 2 or 3 week taper, so we work backwards from that, and that's where the peak training is going to be. And I quite often get people to look at what the sort of minimum is going to be to have a successful event. And I've just kind of roughed out what that kind of 4-week block might look like just before the taper. And this is going to be really similar for the 8 weeks, and to a certain degree, maybe the 12 weeks that lead up to the taper. So it's about looking at the kind of like that time rather than just the event date, to make sure that we've got time to train. Because we're probably going to be running between maybe 5 days a week, maybe even 6. There's going to be a couple of easy runs in there. There might be a midweek workout. And then in that block, 8 to 12 weeks from the event, every other weekend, we're probably going to be doing specific training. So if somebody chooses, a trail ultra, let's say a trail 50k, that's got a reasonable amount of sort of undulation, we might be looking at something like a 16k on the Saturday, and like a 24 to 28k on the Sunday in peak training. Now, this isn't every week, and even if we're working on sort of 3 builds and a download, and we're doing our specific workouts on build week 1 and build week 3, they don't always have to fit exactly on those weeks, depending on what time people have got free. But I'm just trying to get people to look at that general picture. So that's going to kind of add somewhere around kind of like maybe around kind of 68k in terms of volume for build weeks 1 and build weeks 3. Build week 2, I quite often encourage people to have lower volume with a little bit more sort of tempo focus, so may have a little bit more speed work in there. So the build week 2 might be sort of a 50k week, and then a download week might be 50k super easy. So if we think about that as a 4-week block, and then working backwards from the taper and making sure that 8 to 12 weeks out, when that sort of density of training starts, from where we are now, or where we decide to sort of start our training, we can kind of seam into that without too much of a building volume. Just to make sure that at least those last kind of 8 weeks before the taper, we can kind of hit most of the workouts. So I hope that makes some sort of sense. But what I'm trying to really say here is It's not just the event date and the event distance that you need to go, yep, the date's free, and yeah, I think I can complete that event. It's looking at the training that's needed to complete that event and making sure that it's within our abilities and within the time that we've got to train, and it's going to be enjoyable as well. So if you've got any questions, please pop them in the comments below. And for now, happy running!